people, another rant of curiosity. Now they're talking on the news today about the Space Force and its funding and all that good garb. There's one thing I've always wondered. We have been going out of space since the 1960s. We have jointly put up a space station that Americans and Russians use. I have always wondered, why haven't we put up an American space station where we can store rocket fuel and have spaceships be able to dock to? This making it so it's easier for us to venture further out into space. And you could make that space station either like the space station that is up there that circles the Earth, or you could place that space station on the moon, where you can dig it in underground where it's not susceptible to meteors and comets or whatever else, space debris. Wouldn't have that catapulted us further and quicker into the space race, being that our spaceships would not have to conquer the gravity of Earth to be able and waste all the fuel in conquering the gravity of Earth to be able to travel out into space? And as we got out into space, say we use up half our fuel from going to the space station to another area, building another space station there, that fuel and rockets, fuel can be stored and rockets could be docked, making it so that we can go even further. You know, we could go from our moon to another moon and have it so that we're storing fuel on that other moon, because if we're wasting half of our energy escaping Earth's gravity to get out in space, then we'll have twice the amount of fuel to be able to use to get out in space. And then as we have developed from the 60s, why we didn't make spaceships capable of also collecting the energy of the sun to stretch our fuel needs. Why haven't we done that? We're supposed to be the most advanced species, and we are still using huge amounts of fuel, ejecting the emission from that fuel into outer space or into our atmosphere, when we could find a way to make it so that we need less fuel using solar, so we don't need as many trips to a space station to store the fuel, and we can find a way to make fuel in outer space that we normally wouldn't make on Earth. Like, we could make hydrogen up there. You can make hydrogen from taking the water out of compressed dirt. Why haven't we done that? We know these advances in science are out there, but we're not using them to the best of our ability. Why not? What are we waiting for? If we are so gung-ho on getting to know our solar system and getting out there in space, then why aren't we doing everything we can to make that possible? It just baffles me. Are we that afraid of possibly running into an alien entity, whether it be benign or malicious, or running into something different than ourselves, and what we know that we won't even try? Are we so busy with our own squabbles and need for control on Earth that we can't stretch our mind out any further than our little pettiness on Earth? What is our problem? We fight over borders. We fight over what political party is in power. We don't fight for human rights or equality or freedom. We start searching for ways to send us back to an autocracy. And we're so busy with that, we can't stretch our mind any further than that. Could you imagine what we could do if we could just get our politics right to where every citizen on this earth has an equal chance, has their freedom, is able to have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, and the ability to learn? And yeah, they'll have their capitalism of running their own businesses and things like that. But if humanity's basic needs, the ability to have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, and even the ability to learn, the encouragement to learn, if that was taken care of, can you imagine how much further the human mind would stretch? Sure, if you want to go on vacation, you're gonna have to have a job, and you're gonna have to have or own a business. Sure, if you want the most modern clothes out there, you're gonna have to have a job, and you're gonna have to or own a business. Sure, if you want gas to be able to travel further from work than from work and to home, or have a vehicle that'll travel you further than what it takes you to go from work to home on public transportation, you'd have to have a job and or a business to be able to buy a car. If you want a boat to travel around the world, or even wherever you want to travel, you're going to have a job, and you're going to have a business. If you're going to want fish, you're going to have a job or a business to catch that fish. If you want plants, you're going to have, for eating vegetables, you're going to have a job, and you're going to have a business to plant and grow those things. You want meat, the same thing. So, capitalism, if we had more of a fair society, wouldn't be out. but the ability for the human mind to be free to stretch without the worry if they have shelter over their head and food in their stomach and the ability to learn. The human mind, I would imagine, can stretch to unimaginable reaches that no human today is able to do, because so much of their thought pattern and mind is so staunchly concentrated on the quarrels of Earth today, on political bullcrap, on whether we're headed on whether we're headed for an autocracy or are we going to keep a democracy, on leaders who want an autocracy over a democracy, on whether or not we're going to vote for a politician because of the party they belong to, or whether we're going to vote for a politician because of the policies they have, on whether we're from this side of the border or that side of the border, on whether our skin is white or brown, on whether the fact we love the opposite or sex or the same sex. We bother ourselves with such little trivial things that we stifle our mind. And maybe that's why we've never stretched our minds so far as to think of a better way for energy, a better way to get out there and explore space, even a better way to explore our oceans. Just our oceans, how much we don't know about them. We know more about space than we know about our ocean. And I sat here and I wondered, is humanity really all that smart? We're supposed to be the smartest animals on the planet. And many of us think that we're the smartest animals in the universe. But we're too stupid to get over all that little crap and to make sure that humanity has the best environment out there so that they can grow and flourish and learn and stretch their mind and become so much more past what we are today. But we're too happy in what we are today. And we are so afraid of what difference could be out there that we don't want to stretch our mind past anything than what we are today. Is that gonna doom us in the future? Is our ability to allow for freedom and intelligence and a way of life where you're not so worried about how you're going to live, if our ability to not get past that, is that what is going to doom us in the future? Is our inacceptance to basic human rights, to freedom, and and our need to gravitate to authoritarianism, to have somebody else control our life, is that going to be the destruction of humanity? Is our fear of borders and people from the other side of the border gonna keep us trapped to Earth? And once we get over that, is that gonna stretch to on Earth? Is that going to stretch to what happens in space and doom us there? Why haven't we done better? We've been in the space race since the 1960s. And we haven't gotten past going just to the moon and building one simple space station that has no ability for storing fuel, that has no ability for docking spaceships. We have not even entertained the idea of placing a space station on the moon. And I'm sorry, but every nation in this world could easily stick separate space stations on the moon from which to launch their spaceships. Placing a space station on the moon, I mean, the moon has crevices. It could be just as easy as getting some of that material they use in sewers nowadays that inflates and hardens and makes a sewer pipe. You could do the same thing in a crevice in the moon to make a space station and seal it off so it's airtight so that you can make a breathable habitat within that moon station. You can even make one of those and take and cut a hole in the ceiling of it, put a piece of good thick bulletproof glass in that, and then go and dig up to the top so that the sun can reflect down in there. Line the tunnel that goes up to the top with silver, stick in a domed bulletproof piece of glass. That way, if a piece of a meteor comes and punctures the upper dome, the lower glass is still intact and keeping the habitat intact. And you can grow plants down in there just by the refraction of the sun down into the place where you're growing the plants. And that room where you're growing the plants can assist in helping to keep the rest of the moon station heated and with oxygen. You can have a main living quarter on the moon with satellite greenhouses that pump oxygen into the main living place, and then also have satellite cattle areas that pump out to make methane for fuel. And you make them satellites so if something damages them, yeah, it's going to be horrible. The cattle are going to die. But at least you can save the humanity. And you can make those satellite cattle places with the same kind of glass on a greenhouse area and grow grass in them. grow chickens here and cows here. Maybe a few sheep over there so you can shear them and be able to have cloth that you can make. But our brain is so clogged with everything that we squabble about here on earth that the people who can do this kind of stuff, their brains are stifled. They could never imagine having a space station like this up on the moon. That big, huge, gigantic moon that can fit more than one space station. They could never, ever imagine building something like that on the moon. They could never, ever imagine having a docking station up there for spaceships so that we can use less fuel to be able to reach some place like Mars. And explore that. And maybe at some point in time, build a space station there. And then maybe reach the moons of Uranus and build a space station there. Are we that stifled? I mean, I'm a nobody sitting here on Earth with absolutely little to no money. Absolutely no power whatsoever. Got my home. I've got food. I've got clothes. And I sit here and I think about these things. And I'm no rocket scientist. I'm no space scientist. Hell, I don't even know the science of freeze-drying food. But I know it can be done. People buy freeze dryers. I don't even know the science of solar energy. But I know it can be done. People are doing it. I don't even know the science of making gasoline. But I know I can take that gasoline and pour it into a car and be able to travel with it. And I'm able to sit here with all the limited education I have had, nothing more than a GED and a semester or so in nursing. Didn't even graduate nursing school. And with that limited amount of knowledge I have in my brain, I can imagine putting a space station on the moon so that we use less energy to be able to get someplace like Mars. And while we're on that moon with that space station, creating a way to create oxygen, creating a way to create fuel, creating a way to create food up on that moon, so that we're not wasting energy with spaceships that are constantly coming off Earth to the moon to supply the moon. My limited little teeny weeny little nonsensical little brain can think of that and think of the logistics of how to do it. That we can't free more minds to think of something like that. We can't get past our petty little squabbles on earth to stretch our mind to that? You know, a cow might not be able to build a house, a dog or a mountain lion or any other animal out there might not be able to start a business, but in many ways, they are far smarter than us humans. They know how to live. Sure, their living might have some hard times to it, but they know how to live. And there's some awfully smart animals out there. For the animal kingdom. And we're supposed to be the smartest animals of all. Hell, a cheetah has learned to know, and a bear has learned to know, that if I mark my territory, another bear shouldn't come into that territory, and if they do, he will kick his ass. A mother bear is smart enough to know to teach their cubs to climb a tree to get away from a harmful male bear. But we're not smart enough to get out of our own way, to stretch our mind further, and to bring ourselves further from where we have been since the 1960s. So what's that make us?